The voice of the Clemson Tigers football team, Don Munson, is here with us now via Skype. Don, how's everything going down there in Death Valley?
Things are good here in Clemson, South Carolina. Hope things are well there.
Well, things are pretty well here. This Clemson football team's kind of been sort of hard to figure out so far this season. They played well for a half against Georgia, fell just short that overtime loss to Florida State when Jameis Winston wasn't playing, and now they've looked pretty good the past 2 weeks in wins over North Carolina and NC State. What's your take on this team so far?
Well, I think that you go back and you look at that NC State game from last weekend, and really was kind of the first real true 60-minute game that they have put together against a team that at least was be considered Division I. They had the big win, obviously, over South Carolina State earlier this year, but that's a 1AA team. So, but it was a full 60 minutes against NC State, something that Coach Sweeney has certainly been harping on with his ball club to get them to play a complete game. They did it last week. Now we'll find out if they can back it up again this week when the Cardinals come to town.
What do you think has accounted, I guess, for kind of that inconsistency? Because you would hope to not have to be 5 games in before you get your first full game where everything's clicking for 4 quarters. What have been the problems so far for Clemson this year?
Probably a little bit of the youth on the team. We playing a lot of freshmen, a lot of sophomores on the squad. You've lost a lot of, obviously, the big name guys from last year's team that were great leaders on the squad, and so you're having to fill those roles now again. So those would probably be some of the things that you would point out. Certainly the quarterback situation, switching now to a true freshman at quarterback with Deshaun Watson running the show. So I think all of those are kind of variables, but I don't think that Clemson's the only team that's had to battle through this, to be perfectly honest with you, in college football. I think a lot of teams have had to battle through this through the first 4 or 5 games, and it just happened that Clemson opens up against a top 10 opponent and then goes, of course, to the number 1 team. Those are 2 of your first 3 games. And so I think that because of those 2 of those first 3 games like that, you're a little bit more under the microscope than everybody else.
We've seen that a bit here, too, kind of still waiting for that first complete game. But you mentioned Deshaun Watson. He's really been the one breathing life into this Clemson offense. Looked really good when he played against the Seminoles after he came in for Cole Stout. And then as a starter, he's accounted for 10 touchdowns in the last 2 games. How good is he as a freshman, and why wasn't he even the starter from the get-go?
Well, let me answer the first question, I guess, for you. How good is he? He's really good. It was funny because at first, even last week when I was doing some interviews like this, I was telling people, hey, we need to pull the reins back a little bit. This guy is nothing more than a freshman. Well, I'm not doing that anymore. After watching what he did last week, I'm not doing that anymore. The kid is special. Now, why did he not start, from the beginning of the year? Is because really in August camp, he had a first good, say, 10 days of August camp, and then he hit a wall. And it took him about 7 to 9 days to kind of get through the wall and push through it. And during that 7 to 9 day stretch, there was a definite separation between him and Cole Stout, who started the season. And of course had been in the program forever here, kind of as an understudy to Taj Boyd. So that's the big reason that he didn't start. But, he's going to be the starter the rest of the way as long as he can stay healthy.
Of course, hindsight's 20/20, but I really think that Clemson wins that Florida State game if Deshaun Watson is the starter from the beginning. Cole Stout had the one pass where he missed a guy wide open in the flat, and that gives you a touchdown, and I'd like to think Watson would have completed that pass, but every week we like to get an outsider's perspective on the Louisville Cardinal football team. We also have a true freshman under center in Reggie Bonifon, but the main focus has been on the defense, where Louisville has the number 1 ranked defense in terms of total D so far this season. What has been your impression of U of L?
Well, I got to watch them last Friday night. Got to be at home and watch them play against Syracuse, and they were more than impressive, certainly against Syracuse. Just absolutely shut down that Syracuse offense. So I think that is the thing that you look at Louisville right now is defensively, they're a little bit of a juggernaut. Obviously, what they've been doing in the defensive secondary, picking balls off. You've also got a really good defensive front with a couple of guys on that defensive front that can get pressure on the quarterback. And so it's a little bit different from what you would expect from a Bobby Petrino type of ball club. You hear the name Bobby Petrino and you think electrifying offense. Well, they've had electrifying defense. and that the offense has given them enough to win football games. That's not a bad formula, though. There's a lot of teams that use that as a winning formula in college football, to let your defense get out there and play, score just enough points to get you the win, and then move on. I thoroughly expect them to come in here to Death Valley, a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, and be ready to get after the Tigers on Saturday.
Well, the offense has been struggling, lots of ups and downs, but they got some big news this week that star wide receiver Devontae Parker might make his season debut. Is the potential presence of Parker something that registers on the radar with Clemson, or is it just kind of business as usual for the Tigers preparing for this Louisville offense?
Oh no, it moved the needle. It absolutely moved the needle from that standpoint that young man is going to be back. And I guess there's also some question maybe at quarterback exactly what is going to happen. So believe me, that caught the attention of not only the staff but also the players and the fan base here in Clemson, South Carolina, to see exactly what Louisville is going to bring into this. ESPN obviously had a column out this week that the Tigers should be on upset alert, and that's rightfully so. I think that Louisville can come in here and win this football game. Clemson better be ready to go, or else it's not going to go well for the Tigers Saturday in Death Valley.
Well, let's kind of get to a game prediction. It's a Saturday afternoon kickoff, 3:30. I'm sure the folks in Death Valley are going to be a little bit fired up, especially after Bobby Petrino in his weekly press conference kind of downplayed the factor of being on the road in a hostile environment and said the Carrier Dome, where Syracuse plays, would be just as loud. How do you ultimately see this game playing out Saturday afternoon?
Well, I will tell you that Coach Petrino's comments did catch the ear of the fan base, so you can expect a pretty raucous crowd here in Death Valley on Saturday. It looks like it's going to be a sellout as well. As of yesterday, there were only 200 tickets that were left available for the ball game. But, I thoroughly expect this to be a really good football matchup here. The question, I think, becomes is what can Clemson's offense do, obviously, against that Louisville defense? And so that I think is the real big question. Can Clemson come out and strike quickly? When they've had success specifically here at home recently, they've been able to come out and get points on the board early and then kind of keep their foot on the opponent. Now, can they do that to Louisville? We're about to find out. But probably, to me, the biggest key in this entire game is going to be what Clemson's defensive front four does against that Louisville offensive line. I think that probably the folks there that root on the Cardinals are a little questionable for what they have on the offensive line. There's no question at all about what the defensive front at Clemson is all about. So can Clemson come out? Can that defensive front four establish the line of scrimmage, control the running game for Louisville? Because that's certainly the thing that when you take a look at the stats and you take a look at just the size and the physicalness of these running backs that the Cardinals will bring in here, that seems to be the thing that they really want to rely on. They haven't been throwing the ball as much as they've tried to come out, establish the run, and just kind of physically beat you up. So to me, I think that's the really big key in this contest.
It's definitely going to be a battle of wills, and once again, kickoff Saturday at 3:30. Louisville traveling to Clemson. Going to be a tough one, and it's two teams that could really use this ACC victory. Don, I really appreciate you taking out the time to join us.
Glad to be with you. Look forward to seeing you in Death Valley on Saturday.